What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise post-game show. The Blazers today lose to the Washington Wizards by a final score of 126-101. The Wizards are led by Kyle Kuzma. He goes off. Big-time game for him. Dame has 39, gets robbed of a back-to-back 40-point game after a Trendon Watford moving screen to end this thing, and Anthony Simons rolls his ankle. Hopefully it's just an ankle sprain. We'll see if we get an update on that tonight, but this game was rough. A rough way to go into the All-Star break. Anyway, once again, this post-game show is brought to you by BetOnline. Use the promo code BELIEVE for a 50% reward bonus. All-Star game, All-Star weekend coming up. You can have some invested interest in the dunk competition, even though Sharp's not in it, because obviously you can pick that, the three-point contest, maybe the skills contest, I'm not quite sure, and then the All-Star game. And use that promo code BELIEVE for a 50% reward bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts. So this game sucked, Eric. The Blazers...
Doubly.
Yeah, literally and figuratively limp into the All-Star break. Nurkic hurt. Grant has a concussion. Now Anthony Simons gets hurt tonight, unfortunately. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. I see a lot of people worrying about him being in the three-point contest or not, and I think that's the least of their worries with this.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to. X-rays were negative. Unfortunately, with an ankle, sometimes the swelling prevents you from seeing the imaging correctly right when it happens, so they'll probably do more tests or imaging in a couple days when the swelling goes down. But like usually with ankle sprains, best case scenario is a couple weeks. So it helps that we have 9 days off in a row. But yeah, so look for Anthony to probably be out at least a few games after we come back. And then, yeah, I mean, if it's anything worse than that, it's going to maybe be most of the rest of the season because, we only have, 24 games left or something like that in the season. So we're getting down for 22 games. 22, right?
24.
24, okay. So 24 games, so we're getting down to the into the season here where there's not much time to have an injury like this. So, yeah, hopefully it's closer to that mild ankle sprain one. But, yeah, Winslow, as Dolan Dye says in chat, has been out for almost 3 months now with an ankle sprain. So,
when did Winslow sprain his ankle?
I actually think it was early December, so I think it's been 2.5 months. 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. This team's banged up right now. If there ever is a time to sprain your ankle, I guess it would be the last game before the All-Star break in a game we were pretty much going to lose anyway. Just tough to lose him late in the third quarter in a game we were pretty much going to lose anyway. The Blazers went on a little bit of a run there, and then the Wizards dragged it out at the end of it. Were able to cut it close to single digits, couldn't get over the hump. And defensively, the Blazers were just awful tonight. The Wizards shoot 57% from the field, 51.5% from three. They were 28 for 46 inside the arc, which is good for 61%. The Blazers defense was absolutely god-awful tonight. It doesn't matter that you got new guys in here, Eric. It's still the same stuff. Lazy switching defensive scheme for a good part of this game that pushed the Blazers into mismatches. Unfortunately, it was hard to go with much size. Cam Reddish starting at the 4. The only better alternative would have maybe been Trendon Watford, but floor spacing is tough there.
Center.
Yeah, he's the backup center. He only plays 14 minutes tonight, though. He had 4 fouls. That's probably why. Jabari maybe would have been a better matchup for Porzingis than Reddish. Basically, that was just going to be a problem all night. Porzingis being a 7'3" power forward, and Kuzma starting at the 3 gave the Wizards a size advantage in this game, but it was extremely frustrating for me watching this team lazily switch all game long, and then Washington throw it over the top to Porzingis, or Porzingis catch the ball in the post and just shoot over his defender. Porzingis was 10 for 15, had 28 points on 15 shots, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and it felt like he didn't have to work for a lot of his shots. Felt like that he got him pretty easy. Kuzma, 33 points, 11 for 20, and then Beal didn't even have a big game. He had 19 points, 4 assists, ho-hum game from him. The only other guy in double figures was was Kendrick Nunn, who hit a couple threes. So it was basically just a team effort beyond Kuzma and Porzingis, but those guys absolutely dominated us tonight.
Yeah, good thing Chauncey used that challenge to save 1 point on that free throw.
Yeah.
But honestly, though, the Blazers, the whole first half of the first quarter played zone, so didn't really matter what the lineup was because they weren't guarding a man-to-man anyway. So
see, I don't like that, man. Yeah. Because Kuzma can shoot threes, Porzingis can shoot threes, Monte Morris can shoot threes, Bradley Beal can shoot threes, and when you're undersized, they can kind of pick on certain areas of the zone to give themselves an advantage. That's why I don't like undersized teams running zone. I like running zone more if you have more length to plug those gaps, right? Longer wingspans to deflect passes that try and get through the gaps of the zone. But it's basically something where you can just send Porzingis to the short corner area and he's going to have Cam Reddish or Matisse Thybulle on him. That's not good.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got better defenders at the trade deadline, but we still don't have better defenders. So, I mean, you put Matisse on, like he started off at the top of the zone. When they went man, he's guarding like Monte Morris and stuff, and like how is he gonna stop Kuzma? He's not good at guarding bigger defenders. He's better on the perimeter. So when we play teams like this, we got lucky last night. The Lakers just did not have a good game plan offensively and didn't have the shooting or the ball handlers to attack our weak defense, and we still give up 115 points. But
yeah.
Tonight,
that wasn't even a great defensive game last night. It was just overshadowed because we were up the entire game because we made a million threes.
Right, and we did give up some points in garbage time when they were still playing like Malik Beasley against our third string. But there's a case where against bigger teams, like we talk about Denver being one of these teams that have two big forwards and a big center, like the Wizards did tonight. I mean, you can have all the good under 6'8" guards or wings that you want to have on a roster, but you can't defend teams very well if you don't have size. And that's why, for me, like we got a bunch of questions today or comments in some of our streams, like, how could you guys be so down on Thybulle? He's the answer. Look, he's a two-time all defensive team and all this stuff. And I'm trying not to get too high or too low based off the games right now because I like to evaluate over several games. But, I mean, this is why – I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but this is why I was disappointed was because the whole season, Chauncey, Cronin, the players, the coaching staff, the announcers were saying we need more length defensively to have better defensive game plans, and that was not addressed. Whether you think Cam Reddish and Matisse Thybulle are long or not, they're still smallish defenders or better on smaller players, not bigger players, and we did not do a single thing to address rim protection or that kind of stuff. So that's my main problem with the trade deadline. Not that we brought in Thybulle, but that we didn't address the size issue up front.
Yeah, it's like it talked about all season long, and in this game, you heard the announcers talk about a lack of size. It's like that was my issue with the trade deadline was it was basically it said to me that they weren't trying to win this year. Because if you were trying to win this year, you would have shored up the power forward and center positions instead of starting Cam Reddish, who's a shooting guard, small forward type of guy, like slight build. He's 6'8". He doesn't have the longest wingspan. He's like 6'7", 6'8". I think his wingspan's 6'9". You don't want him playing the 4. They just don't have quality size. So when it came down to the trade deadline and their main acquisitions were Matisse Thybulle and Cam Reddish, and it's 2 wings. That was the frustration. But it was also like, okay, well, if you're not trying to win this year, then why are you trading a couple second-round picks for Matisse Thybulle then? With him being a free agent, and Cam Reddish is going to be a free agent, that was my frustration, was how does that set you up to make a trade? Because you can't trade either of those contracts this offseason in order to match salary. They're both free agents. Jody's so cheap that they probably can only keep one of them. And the one who, if either of them plays really well, then they might be priced out where Jody doesn't want to keep them, and you're keeping Grant instead because Jody doesn't want to go into the tax. That was my problem with the trade deadline, is just like any way you slice it, it wasn't ideal. And in terms of this team like trying to win, yeah, it's nice when they can make 17 threes and a half. Any team, you could find, like the Charlotte Hornets, when they were able to hit 17 threes and a half, they're really freaking good. Any team in the league is. Any team in the world is, you know what I mean? The Hornets last night had 144 points. 144 points. Like, that's the thing, is there's any team can have a really good night, especially in today's NBA. So they looked really good last night, but that was the thing with Matisse, man. I'm rooting for him because I really like his personality. He played at Washington, plays hard. Like, I like a lot of things about him, but one game going 4 for 6 doesn't mean all of a sudden he's a shooter. Tonight he was 0 for 3. So I'm with you in terms of not trying to overreact to one game.
Yeah, like last night he played probably one of his best games of his career, and tonight he had a terrible game. So like it's got to balance out at some point. But the problem is we can't really afford to have these inconsistency issues because we've had inconsistent players, or players that, like Nas, for example, who I think it was 0 for 6 from the field tonight, including maybe 0 for 5 from 3 without looking. I don't think he hit a 3.
You said Nas?
Yeah, last night
he's 0 for 5.
He's hitting his threes last night and tonight. So, like, this is the problem. Like, we can't find that consistent shooter that makes the defenses pay. And Thibault and Reddish both have had problems shooting throughout their entire career. So unless we get a situation where one of those guys become consistent, like maybe that happens in this situation, maybe this was just an outlier. But I don't think you can react too like positively or too negatively to either one of these games so far. We're going to have to just give it some time. But unfortunately, we have 9 days off now. It might be good for them to get some practice and
for Ant to get rested.
Yeah, but and Reddish did have a good shooting night tonight, so that was encouraging. But just tough. But like Shaggy Squid says, Reddish and Thibault are depth for next year. They're not under contract next year, dude. Like, so that's one of our problems with the trade is we brought in guys that you have to re-sign. So, like, what do? Do you offer them both of them have pretty high qualifying offers, like $7 to $9 million. It's like, do you offer that to them? And can we afford to pay them that much if they're not that good? Like we can match offers for them, but you have to offer that contract, that qualifying offer to do that. So, it's just really tough. And then do we really need both of them, like you mentioned last stream? So, yeah.
Yeah, you just got too many. I mean, the Blazers roster lacks 4 things. 4 things, okay? And obviously at the top, with Dame and with Ant and to some extension Jeremy Grant, they're fine. But beyond that, they lack shot creation. They lack consistent shooting. They lack consistent defense. And they lack size. Everybody beyond the big 3, obviously Nurkic has size, but in terms of our depth is lacking, severely lacking in all 4 of those things. Sure, Matisse Thybulle's a great defensive player, but the other 3 things, he's not super big. He's not a consistent shooter. He's not somebody that's going to create for others, right? Cam Reddish, he's not consistent at anything. He had a really good game tonight, but that's kind of been his entire career. Is he'll have a really good game, then he'll have a game like he did last night where he just cannot make a single shot. And defensively, he's very inconsistent. He makes a bunch of off-ball mistakes, just like Nas. He is just like Nas. The thing is it's tough if you're going into each game with 2 guys like a Reddish. Shut up, Geico commercial. I swear I muted this page. All right, let me make sure I mute it again. The screen-addicted tween commercial? That just popped up. But it's tough going into each game with 2 forwards that you have no idea what you're going to get out of them on either side of the ball. And that's basically what you have with Cam, and that's what you have with Nas. And Nas, 5 rebounds, 4 assists is nice, but he needs to consistently knock down shots. We were 12 for 42 from 3 today, Eric. 29%. We just rely on Dame and Ant to kind of carry our three-point shooting and then hope that 1 or 2 guys can just step up and randomly have a good shooting night. But you need guys that you can consistently count on, and that's the problem with our depth.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, you got Cam shooting threes tonight, and that we still didn't do well, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean they left those guys open again, and unfortunately tonight they weren't hitting them.
Yeah, so Nas 0 for 5.
Almost all of Nas and Matisse's threes were wide open, no one around.
Simon's only shot 3 in his 27 minutes tonight. I think getting him more three-point looks is going to be crucial for a team lacking shooting. It's just tough because you can't consistently rely on a number of guys in this rotation bringing one of those 4 things. Like, Watford's undersized for his position. You still don't know if he can consistently shoot or not. Defensively, he's inconsistent. Creation-wise, he has some good moments, but tonight, 14 minutes, 0 assists. Like, he's, a secondary guy at best. Just got too many players in this rotation like that, and that was the frustration at the deadline was, like, Hart. You can rely on him to consistently rebound as if he has size, and then you can rely on him to consistently create for others and push the pace. And the thing is now he's back in New York, and he's looking comfortable shooting threes again. It felt like he would have been better off our bench, and he's been phenomenal off New York's bench in a couple of games. So it's kind of frustrating not to have somebody that can do many different things right now. And that was part of the problem with the trade deadline was we basically lost a guy that could be that off a bench, and we got guys back that, are just kind of limited or not consistent. And that's the biggest problem with this team is you got a lot of players you don't know what you're going to get in on a night in, night out basis.
Yep. So Shaggy Squid said you can probably keep Reddish and Thibault for under $10 million each. We're not paying both of those guys $20 million or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you need high-end role players. We talked about top-end talent, Eric. You need top-end talent and high-end role players.
Mm-hmm. And I think Thibault can be a high-end role player. Obviously, that Reddish could be if he ever figures it out. But I don't see how with Nas, Sharp, Jeremy, if he's resigned. Like, if Jeremy doesn't resign, absolutely, we're going to have to keep both of those guys.
I mean, we're screwed.
Yeah. There's even if you, why would you re-sign both of them? I mean, doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Yeah,
I agree. Thibault fits a clear area of need right now. Reddish is more speculative upside.
I do want to talk about this, though, okay? So everyone's talking about putting Thibault on the ball, right?
Yeah.
The main ball handler. So, I don't know. Let's say tonight we're putting him on Beal or something, right? And then you put Ant on Morris, right? That still leaves one of Dame or Ant, who's ever not guarding Morris, on either Porzingis, Kuzma, or Gafford, right? So, like to me, having Thibault, and this is why, he's probably our best option at the 3 right now, but, it doesn't make a lot of sense because our scheme is messed up. I think ultimately for the Dame and Ant thing to work, you just have to let them be your main ball handler defenders and let the back end of your defense do their job. But we're kind of forcing it to be always like that, where Dame or Ant's going to always be on a bigger player, and it's going to be tough to combat that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. That starting lineup we went up against tonight has the biggest combination of forwards as you'll find. 6'9" Kyle Kuzma and 7'3" Porzingis. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically against a team like that, it comes down to there's going to be mismatches in the offensive in the offense's favor on each side of the floor. So it's going to be an offensive game. The thing is, you have to be able to score with them. Like, it has to be a situation where, it's tough for them playing Kuzma at the 3 and Porzingis at the 4 to match up with the Blazers' talent on the perimeter. But that's the thing, is when you have a 3 that you can play off of, all of a sudden it plays into their benefit with their size, because they can put, a Porzingis or a Kuzma on a Matisse Thybulle, and if he's not consistently knocking down shots, which he hasn't in his career, then that guy can kind of sit in the paint, and then you can overplay on the perimeter because you have more help behind you. That's why you need a small forward that can knock down shots. And that was, part of the issue with Thybulle, and teams exploit that in the playoffs, And that's the thing. We can sit here and say if he starts making threes, if he has confidence, because I don't think Philadelphia was the best situation for him. Doc Rivers does not handle young players well, and, listening to Thybulle's interviews last night was quite enjoyable, actually. Seems like, really genuine guy, but it was also insightful in terms of him feeling comfortable here. And knocks down 4 threes in his first game. You'll take that, obviously. That's the second most threes he's made in a game his entire career. But I just feel like for years, Eric, we've been stuck in this trap, like talking about role players, saying if they could be consistent, or if they could do this, or if they could do that. And normally that bites us in the butt. Like, normally that does not pan out. And I'm kind of past the point where I'm sitting here like, if only Cam Reddish could, fulfill his upside, if only Nasir Little could be consistent, if only, Matisse Thybulle could shoot threes, because we've had those conversations before with other players on this roster before, and it just doesn't work out for us.
Right, and that's why I was disappointed at the trade deadline, because we brought in, like, nothing but, if they're just in the right system or maybe on another team, they could be better, right? So... that's literally all we did when I thought we needed someone. We need, even if it's overpaid, to get someone who's just already established and more consistent. So it's tough. That's why those guys were available for so cheap. So you got to hope that, through these last 20 games. But, okay, let's say both of them, they got this All-Star break, and let's say the last 24 games they both play really well, and let's say just for a hypothetical, we pay them both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 4 years, $40 million or whatever, based off 20 games of playing, right? Or will end up being like 26 in Thybulle's case and 27 in Reddish's case, right? And then so you're really going into next season with those two being re-signed as your big moves this year, and maybe adding a tax mid-level exception. That's if Jody's willing to go into the tax for Thybulle and Cam Reddish, and then we're talking about them being on, long-term contracts. So if they're inconsistent or don't play like they did this year, then we're probably stuck with them. Because everyone says, like, Nurk's a negative contract or whatever. Imagine having those guys then go revert back to the way they've been on other teams, but on 4-year, $40 million contracts instead, And then all of a sudden we're stuck with this roster for years. And so that's my fear. I'm hoping that it's not like that. But I just don't see a scenario where Jody's going to be willing to go into the tax to re-sign both Jeremy and those two guys.
Yeah, and we've talked about swinging for upside, and obviously that has to be a part of the plan. But people, I feel like, confuse upside for guys that were once upside picks and guys that are, because guys that were once upside picks but have played for 4 years in the NBA and haven't seemingly improved a whole lot and haven't, found any sort of consistency, but have some natural talent or whatever, like a Cam Reddish. Sure, hypothetically, if you could figure out how to hone that in, then, he'd be a really good player or whatever, but he's already been on 2 organizations, and there hasn't really been any signs of that. So, you know, maybe we can be the organization to do it. But that's the type of guy you take on as like a fringe guy, right, Eric? That's the guy you take on that maybe he's the 9th, 10th, 11th man, but you don't have to rely on him. Like the Knicks this year did not have to rely on Cam Reddish to be a competitive team.
They took a chance on him. They gave up a highly protected first, and it didn't work out for them. And they had to give up a first to get a better player instead of him. The
problem is we are desperately reliant on him panning out, you know? We are desperately reliant on Nasir Little panning out. Matisse
Thybulle being the answer to
Matisse Thybulle figuring out how to, you know, consistently shoot the 3-ball and being the answer to our entire defense. Yeah, like, we are so desperately reliant on such speculative stuff that it's a problem. And that's where it's like you need a good mix of guys you can rely on and guys that have upside. And you need to play it that way, where if the guys that have upside fulfill some of that, then they're going to play ahead of some guys that are just solid veteran role players. But when have the Blazers gone on a run in the past? When they made the Western Conference Finals, they had Seth Curry. You knew exactly what you're getting out of Seth Curry. He would have some occasionally scrappy defense, and he was going to knock down threes. You knew what you were getting out of Rodney Hood. He was going to score the ball at a high level from mid-range, from 3. You knew you were getting night in, night out from Zach Collins. He was going to hustle, play some defense. Sometimes would have quiet offensive games, but you didn't need him to have big offensive games. You knew exactly what you were getting out of Enes Kanter. He was going to rebound. He was going to post guys up. He was going to finish off the roll. He wasn't going to play like a defense, obviously, but you knew the positives that you're getting out of him. That entire bench, you knew what that bench was, and it was very solid because of it. That's the problem going forward is, like, I still think the starting lineup, we have to answer the starting 3 spot, but the other 4 spots I think are fine, despite how much people want to make it out to be a Nurkic issue with our defense, which, I mean, right now it doesn't really look like that. You know, our defense hasn't been any better without him.
Love to see Nurk with a backup center that's a legit, like I mentioned last stream, Ed Davis type that just comes in and does all the dirty work, and Ed is a legit defender, you know. Zach Collins back this summer or something, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You knew what you were going to get out of Ed Davis. He was going to play some solid defense. He was going to rebound the ball extremely well. Drew Eubanks, you don't know what you're going to get from him on a night-out basis. Sometimes he'll get a good defensive game. Sometimes he'll be out of position almost every single possession.
And that's fine, like in this situation where Nurk's hurt, for Drew to have a role, you know, like that's where he's best suited, but it shouldn't be as like the main player, you know.
Yeah. So basically, like, that's kind of the point this organization is at, and maybe you can find something the last, you know, little bit of this season, but I don't see how this team is any more consistent than the team that we saw to start the season, right? We talked about how inconsistent the team was, but Josh Hart was kind of rough this year, but you still kind of knew what you were getting in terms of he's going to push the pace, he's going to rebound the ball, he's going to distribute for guys, and he's going to try and get to the rim, right? So that's kind of that was kind of my issue with like a Cam Reddish pickup, is he'll have flashes where like he looks good on offense, shooting the ball, driving the ball, and then defensively, but it's so wildly inconsistent, man. It's just tough being in a position where we're so reliant upon such positive outcomes out of guys that haven't really trended towards that. So you're gonna keep getting games like last night, and then games like tonight where the Blazers looked awesome last night and shot the hell out of the ball, and then tonight got absolutely blown out by a very mediocre team in their own building. Obviously the injuries didn't help, but that's the problem, is we haven't had a bench that we can rely on.
And what does that equal when you look at it as a whole from season to season to season? It's basically 500 team, pushing the 8 seed, maybe playing type range. Maybe you go on a hot streak and win 10 games in a row and find yourself pushing up to the 6th seed. Maybe you go on a bad streak and lose 5 or 6 in a row and find yourself either in the second play-in or on the outside looking in like we are right now. But that's the problem with having guys that are inconsistent and that, like you said, are having to be relied on to not be that way when they've been that way their whole careers. So I mean, that's basically a 500 team, even with Dame playing amazing. I mean, I
Yeah.
know he didn't shoot crazy well tonight. I think he took like 30 shots to get his 39 points,
Hmm.
but I mean, it's hard to argue that he's been one of the best players in the NBA the last couple months. So
He's
that's with
14 for 30. He's still decently
yeah,
efficient.
but that's with him playing super well.
Yeah.
That it's tough to it's tough to do that. And then on top of that, I mean, our defense is just trash, and like it hasn't been good for months now. And until that happens, I mean, like I said, we thought we had a pretty good game plan last night, but at the same time, they didn't really have the most explosive guys off the pick and roll last night. And Anthony Davis just decided to stop punishing us after the first quarter, so
Hmm.
we got kind of lucky there. So, and their bench unit did not play well, but I mean, it's kind of deflating when the other team's making 17 out of 29 threes. It doesn't really matter who you're playing. It's just like frustrating. Like tonight, Kuzma hits that three-quarters court shot at the end like we just couldn't seem to catch a break in this one. But that's the problem. It's like you're going to have those ups and downs. We're going to be talking about, like last night, how positive we are about this team, and it's looking like we maybe could go on a run, and now we lose a game and look really bad, and it's like the opposite. Should we tank? And that I just think that's probably what's going to happen the rest of the season.
Yep. We control the boards for the most part. I mean, we got out rebounded by 7, but that's because they made a lot more shots and we missed a lot more shots. They only had 5 offensive rebounds. We had 12. But in the starting lineup, Reddish, 33 minutes, 1 rebound. Thibault, 30 minutes, 1 rebound. Simons, 27 minutes, 2 rebounds. The reason why we were able to control the boards is because our freaking point guard who does everything is now, I guess, Josh Hart in terms of rebounding. Dame had 10 rebounds in 39 minutes, 6 assists. So, I don't know. Rebounding, obviously, you throw Grant back into that. Rebounding, I feel like, is going to be an issue, too. It's just, it's a tough position, Eric, when it's like... Well, let me have chat answer this. Chat, in terms of... Let's assume Thibault's a starter with Grant, Nurk, Dame, and Ant. Who off the bench do you feel like you can rely on and know what you can expect from on a game-in, game-out basis? Who can you rely on the most right now? I'm curious to see your guys' answer. Eric, what would your answer be?
As funny as this is, it's Shaden Sharp, I think.
Yeah, that's what chat is saying. That's what I was going to say. That's how you know it's really bad. When it's your 19-year-old rookie who didn't play in college, that's your most reliable player off the bench that you can expect, positives from on a night-in, night-out basis.
He played really good tonight again.
He's been playing really good, Didn't have as many rebounds as he's had lately, but he's had some good rebounding games. Like the rebounding and passing, assists, all that's extra. But 0 turnovers. He's cleaned up a lot of the really bad turnovers he had to start the year. But 5 for 9 from the field, attacking closeouts, 2 for 5 from 3. His shot looks good again, and he's hitting threes again.
Sick,
that dunk was sick. Defensively, he's starting to figure some things out. He is your most consistently reliable player off the bench right now. That's not how it should be.
Well, he's probably going to be starting for a while. He better start at the 2.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how long Simons is out, obviously, but I don't expect him back after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, you give Sharp Simons his minutes, and, he's playing really well. You don't want to force him too much responsibility and kind of give him a mental setback because, if you put him in the number 2 role offensively, well, Grant should be back after the break. But if you give him too much responsibility and he struggles, you don't want him to lose the confidence he's built up with this good play. But at this point, if anyone looks ready for a bigger role, it's him. He's been really solid lately. So, if Simons misses an extended period of time after the break, he'll get the start, and he should get the start because, frankly, we need his shooting. His shot creation lately has been, we've started to see flashes of it.
He was hesitating a little bit tonight. I didn't understand that. There was a time he dribbled and got to a spot around the free throw line and went to he was about to raise up and shoot, and then he just stopped and kicked it back out. But he also had he had a really nice drive and kick out to the corner. I think it was the Thibault who missed the three, but I think we were down like 10 or 12 at the time. It would have been a huge three. But yeah, I really like the way he's been playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, let me think a couple, or you have something to finish off this.
Reese says, why were Kuzma's looks all open? Well, he had some tough ones in the second half that weren't necessarily open, but in the first half, I think Corey just said 17 out of their 18 threes or something were wide open catch and shoot threes, and that's continues to be a problem.
Yeah. Let me think. 3 donos. We got Emerson with 99 of something.
Philippine pesos, I think.
Philippine pesos.
Filipino pesos.
What's up, Emerson? Says, hopefully Ant, Grant, and Nurk come back strong after the All-Star break. Yeah, I mean, we need all 3 of those guys, man. We don't have the depth, really, to absorb a loss to any of those guys. It's funny how a lot of people that, hate Nurk are lamenting our lack of size right now. It would be real nice to have his size, Eric.
Well, people who loved what we did at the trade deadline are also still complaining about the lack of size. So it's like, no crap. That's why we were mad.
Yeah. It doesn't really make sense to me. So they were the people that also liked the GP2 sighting when we were lamenting how he's a 6'2" wing. So at what point is it going to be consistent?
You know who has size, which we could have gotten instead of second-round picks?
Who?
James Wiseman.
Yeah.
Why not just throw him out there right now, 20 minutes a game, and see what he is, and let him either find out that, and if not, it would have been an expiring contract.
Exactly. That's your upside play, because that's a guy who's just been hurt and hasn't gotten a consistent chance. That's more of an upside play than, Reddish, who's gotten much more of a chance than Wiseman has so far. So, yeah, we could have had Wiseman. Instead, we settled for 5 second-round picks. That was the problem with the trade deadline.
Some of them might not even convey, and
yeah, might not even be 5. Yeah. So that's the problem. That's the problem with the deadline, and it's, funny because people was like, oh, you're... Now I got people getting on me, Eric, for being too negative again, when I had multiple times this season where people were like, are you going to panic yet? Are you panicking now like the rest of us?
YYC, it's... Detroit had no say in this. They only traded Wiseman to Detroit after we said no to a Gary Payton for Wiseman straight-up trade.
Yep.
Yeah, so apparently it was that the Blazers valued the second-round picks more than Wiseman, so, we didn't want him. And if you read my article on BlazersUprise.com, you'd also know that we did not want any salary. We passed up players in other trades, too, that had guaranteed salary for next year, simply because knowing we're going to go to try and re-sign Jeremy Grant, if that's around $30 million a year, that's going to push us very close to the luxury tax when you factor in, signing other players to the roster, and bringing on salary for next year would mean that Jody might not have a say whether or not to go in the luxury tax or not. And she didn't want to be put in that position. She wants to be in a flexible position to stay under if she wants to. We have a cheap owner, and that's also factoring into some of these decisions, like why they passed on a chance to get a good look at Wiseman as maybe the answer long term is at center. It's all money motivated, but it would have been nice to have like someone that's massive with size that can protect the rim right now to go up against some of the players we played against tonight.
Yep, absolutely. Shout out Brandon Thennis. $2 dono says these injuries going to steer us to a tank. I mean, maybe. If it happens like that, it happens like that. That's the only way a tank would happen, is if we have a bunch more injuries. And then shout out Kun Marcelo with a 500. I think that's also Filipino pesos. It's the same sign as Emerson's, but Kun Marcelo, with a 500 dono, says, do Reddish and Thibault have bird rights? Yeah, they do. If so, it means we can re-sign them even if we exceed the cap without penalty of the luxury tax, right? No,
Nope.
let me read the final part, then we'll talk about that. Also, that fourth quarter D was entertaining, kind of a glimpse of what they can do defensively. Thank you for the dono. Yeah, the problem is they only play that aggressive desperation D when they're down 15 in the second half. It's never in the first half, and that's frustrating.
I'd also like to point out we got outscored in the fourth quarter, 29-27. So
yeah. So
was it really that good a defense, or did it just seem like that because it was people flying around?
We did fight back, and then they outplayed us in garbage time. So I mean, still 29 points in a quarter would have been nice.
We fought back, and then they pushed the lead up to 20 before garbage time, and then it was garbage time. But
I mean, yeah, but 29 points in the quarter might have been their low for the game. They had 28 in the second quarter. That's the thing. We just given up 38 in the third quarter, so 29 isn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, where's that defense the rest of the game?
Yeah, I would love to throw that in there when we're struggling in the first quarter defensively. That would be awesome. But as far as as far as the question about if Reddish and Thibault have bird rights, if so, it means we can re-sign them even if we exceed the cap without penalty of luxury tax. The luxury, like, every salary on the books applies to the luxury tax. Mm-hmm. There's no situation where, like, a salary on the books doesn't apply to the luxury tax. Because there was a misconception lately that if you absorbed a player in a trade with a trade exception, his salary doesn't count towards the luxury tax. And then this question, is basically wondering if we resign a guy with the bird rights, does their salary count towards the luxury tax? It's not complicated, actually. If a salary's on the books, it counts towards the luxury tax.
If you're in the tax.
Or I mean,
it counts towards whether you're in it or not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly.
But on top of that, so here's basically what the situation is with Thibault and Reddish. We can offer them any contract between a minimum contract and a maximum contract, and we can choose to sign them both to maximum contracts, pay them both $30 million a season, and go deep into the tax for them. That's just up to the owner how much they're willing to do. Like, obviously, you wouldn't give those guys max contracts, but you have to pay the tax whether you are re-signing them with bird rights or not. That does not matter.
Yep, absolutely. The refs tonight, Eric, were really annoying. But
I mean,
in a 25-point loss, can't really complain.
You get down 23 at the end of the third. I mean, yes, there were some bad calls down the stretch. I don't understand, even if, I mean, he got the call right. I guess he improved his challenge record, but I don't understand challenging a foul call on that. And then, I mean, I guess the refs still would have kept it because they looked at it and saw it was a flagrant foul. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I think you could have maybe challenged that and asked for an offensive foul instead on that flagrant foul by Dame. That was just dumb. But like, I mean, it was just a bad call. But I mean, we're still down double digits at the time. It's not like, I mean, we had the momentum, but we still would have had to overcome a 10 or 12-point lead with minutes left on the clock. So I don't know.
Yep.
And then, yeah, we have the ball down like 10 or 12, and Chauncey gets a freaking tee, gives them a free point, and then Dame gets a tee a minute later.
Yeah. I mean, our technicals haven't been I don't know. Our technicals seem to come back to bite us. Sometimes it's a good thing. Like, Dame got a foul call right after his technical, but I mean, if you're going to get a technical, do it earlier in the game, do it earlier. Because I do think it does influence refs when you really get on them when they do call a technical, but I mean, at that point, the game's already kind of out of hand, and you're just making sure that it is out of hand. There's not really much of a chance to come back from that. Anyway.
And yeah, we had the ball. Reddish, he airballed that 3. We were down 10, I think, at the time. Would have cut it to 7.
That was such a bad
I mean, it's our own Like, you can't blame the refs when you get down 20 plus points and look like complete crap most of the game and then try to make a furious comeback at the end.
Yep. So what's your thought on the whole tanking talk?
Once again, this team isn't going to outright tank like they did last year. Dame still believes this team is a playoff team, and it's hard to argue when you look at the standings. I mean, it would be nice right now to be 500 up in, I think we'd be in 8th or 9th place right now if we win this game, and only 2 games out of 5th, 2.5 out of 4th. If they just naturally tank without necessarily doing it, I'm all for. I won't be upset if they don't make the playoffs. I'm obviously rooting for them to win still. Didn't want them to get blown out at home by the Wizards heading into a break where we have to think about this loss for 9 days. But yeah, I think I don't think a miracle trade is happening this summer. So in my opinion, based on some of the info I've received on how much teams wanted for like, okay players or really, really good players that we could never match that price for. And even if we did, like, we're gutting our whole team for, say, Mikal Bridges or something. Like, is that really something that makes us that much better? Like Siakam or Embiid, that's completely not happening based on how much value those guys have and how much those teams are asking for in those trades. So I don't think that's realistic. So in my mind, hitting a home run, whether that's, getting lucky and moving up in the lottery for the ultimate home run in Wembanyama, or, getting, the 8th to 10th pick or whatever, and you hitting on that pick, you have to obviously get it right. As I think we did last year with Sharp. You get one more really talented player. Hopefully it's a bigger player, like a forward size player, and you hit on that. And now all of a sudden you have another stud, like, young player. And eventually this team might be so good that Dame doesn't even have to do that much. So, and then you have the Knicks pick to swing for the fences too. So, to me, it's very unlikely this team just turns from what they've been the last few years into a championship contender. But I think the best possible way, even if we're talking 2% versus 1% or whatever, is taking a swing on a couple more draft picks and just hoping you keep adding that talent, and eventually you get, say, like Orlando the last couple of years. Even if you ignore Banchero, they got like Franz Wagner type player. You just got to hit on a player like that who's really good and becomes your starting small forward or whatever for years to come. And then as Dame gets older, you have this team that's really good around him, and he can still be good in spurts, but doesn't have to carry us scoring 38 points a game, and we're still a 500 team.
Yeah, as far as tanking goes, let's just define it. Tanking means that the organization is purposefully putting themselves in a position to lose games. Okay? Because some people, I tweeted about it, and there was a response, something along the lines of oh, look how close we are to the 7th or 8th best odds in the lottery. We don't, we're already tanking, or I forget what it said. But I've seen a lot of people in the past say, it seems like some people think tanking is just simply not being good, and there's a difference. There's a difference between this team being mediocre and this team purposefully trying to lose. This team purposefully tried to lose last year. They held out Ant, they held out Hart, they held out multiple guys, right? The thing is in order to tank, you would have to sit out Damian Lillard. So there's no tanking without sitting out Damian Lillard. Now, as the Braden Tennis Donut said, these injuries are going to steer us to a tank. If Dame gets hurt and Ant, is out for an extended period of time, then maybe it is a situation where they just don't rush Nurk back at all. Don't rush Ant back at all. don't rush, Dame's out for the rest of the season. And then grant, something will magically come up with him, right? And he'll be out the rest of the year. That will be tanking. But tanking is purposefully done.
I thought even if all those guys get hurt, our medical staff would just force them to play.
Well, I mean, that's the narrative down there in Golden State. But yeah, I'm interested to see the next step of that. But yeah, I mean, we haven't forced players to play all year, so that's what tanking would look like. Because I just feel like people get confused and think this team being mediocre and consistent is tanking, and it's not. So
basically, Dame on the court, we're not tanking. If Dame and several other starters are out, then maybe it's time to pull the chute completely.
Yep, and if Dame isn't cool with sitting out, they're not going to sit him out.
No.
They're not going to. That's the thing. So tanking isn't realistic right now.
Yeah. Dame is always going to be give me a shot in the playoffs. He thinks he can do it, and I mean, I'm not betting against him to make the playoffs this year with no matter who his roster is. So, yeah.
Yep.
And 10 teams make the play. So, even if we suck and we get the 10th seed, because a lot of teams are probably going to pull the chute at some point. There's still a chance he wins 2 playing games and gets us in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah, it's just like right now we are the 10th, we are the 11th most talented team in the Western Conference. I still think we have more talent than OKC. I think OKC's just coached really well. I still think we have more talent than Utah after the deadline. San Antonio, Houston. Every other team, I think, has more talent. Maybe not star talent, but just in terms of 1 through 10, 1 through 11 guys that play the rotation. 10 teams in the West have a more talented rotation than us. And it's frustrating because Dame is maybe the last, in 2023, you could make the case that Dame is the best player in the West. Mm-hmm. That's how good he's been. And that's the frustrating part about it, man.
It's probably not better than Jokic, but yeah, pretty close.
I mean, Dame, what was it, the last month is averaging 38 points per game and 7 assists on a 72% true shooting percentage. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. If he had talent around him, we'd be talking about this dude potentially. He'd be a front runner for MVP right now if this team was a 3 seed because he had talent around him. But because he doesn't, he's not even in the top 10.
Why didn't they get in some vets then at the deadline?
That's my big problem. Some expiring vets or something. But that's the thing is it's like their moves suggested they were tanking, but they're not going to tank, so they're just stuck in the middle. And I don't know how they're going to get out of it. That's where the frustration comes. I'm tired of being in the middle. I want to get out of it. Some people get frustrated when I don't like a trade deadline and they get mad at my frustration. But man, how long have we been sitting in this position without budging either way, up or down? Last year we tanked, but we tanked because that team was mid and Dame was hurt. If Dame was healthy, we probably don't tank last year and we're what? A 9 seed? With that roster, an 8 seed? We're just stuck. And I want to get out of this out of the middle. And obviously that would be up with Damian Lillard because I don't want to trade him. I don't want to go back on his loyalty. The thing is just how in the world is this franchise going to get there? Because right now this roster is the 11th most talented rotation in the league.
Yeah, and even without Dame, after he had his surgery, we still had to sit out Winslow, Hart, Ant, and Nurk because they were winning too many games.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing is
we would have definitely been better than the Spurs last year.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, too, is just the narrative around it is based on who's the GM. If Olshey was still GM, it'd be, he's doing nothing to get Dame any help or, make the Blazers a contender. He's just wasting his time. But with Cronin, it's just wait. Just wait till the deadline. And then it's just wait till the offseason. And then it's just wait till the deadline. And now it's just wait till the offseason. And it's just wait. At some point, Eric, he has to come up with something. Some sort of plan that we'll be able to see. Because right now I just don't see the plan.
Well, that's what my problem was with not getting Wiseman. Was because, if you have 2 first-round picks and you have all these second round picks and stuff. I mean, now you're talking about having to trade one of your core pieces, one of your starters, to get a good player, or heaven forbid a max contract type player becomes available, and we can't like we literally pretty much have to give up Anthony then in that situation. And so like how much better does that make us? But if you would have had Wiseman's contract, that's like a $12 million contract next year. You could attach 2 firsts to them, even if it's just an expiring contract. But if he gives you anything this year or shows any promise, then he would not only have trade value, but maybe you could talk about him being the backup center, and then you don't have a spot you have to fill next year, and on and on. So that's just my problem with the moves is like we set ourselves up, like you said, to kind of quietly tank or to not really care about this season. And it's always kicking the can down the road. When are they going to actually do something to make it to where Dame has a legit chance and some quality players that because every time he's had like quality vets for like a playoff run and like guys you can depend on, he's done really well.
Yeah. And then there's a couple comments. One says, "What do you want Cronin to do?" And then the next comment says, He did say he tried to make trades. Teams hung up on him. LOL. The thing is good GMs come up with a plan that's realistic that they then are able to execute. Him not being able to execute his plan is not an excuse for him, right? We get mad at players for making mistakes, and if a player makes too many mistakes and doesn't execute, then they're not a good player, then they're criticized. That's how it goes for GMs too. You got to be able to come up with a plan that you're then able to execute. And that's why you have to have contingency plans and backup plans that have some sort of direction. So what do I want Cronin to do? I want him to come up with a plan to get us out of the middle and execute it. Because so far, after a year and a half of being the GM, I feel like we're no closer to getting out of the middle. That's the frustrating part. That's the thing. If we were closer, then I wouldn't be critical of him. That's just the thing. That's what it comes down to.
And here's my issue with like Reddish and is, okay, let's say they're amazing and we improve them to the point where they're tradable assets. They're free agents, so we can't trade them this summer. Yeah. So like we didn't get anything to make that all-in move. So like he's saying he's kicking down the can down the road and going to make a move, and then. Dude, the guy was literally talking about how he's going to win free agent battles, like with what free agent money this summer. Like, you know what I mean? Like the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's just trying to like say everything to make it so it doesn't seem like the owner's cheap and they won't be able to ever make that all-in move. But that's, I mean, it's not even really his fault. He's just stuck in a position. And unfortunately, this is why I have a problem with Cronin, and ultimately I do blame him, is because if you are in this position where you have to be cheap and you're never going to be able to go into luxury tax, you have to make moves. You have to hit on some moves or on things that don't happen, whether that's, your tax mid-level exception signing, or, you went into the hard, or you got hard cap to sign someone. He didn't have to do that. He could have stayed on there. He took Eric Bledsoe back in a trade thinking that contract was going to be some sort of valuable asset. I even heard people say that he thought that was going to be, because it was 6 days before the trade deadline, he thought that was going to be like the most valuable trade piece that over the next 6 days, and then he doesn't do anything with it. And then we have to like waive him and then have dead money on our books for 3 years because of it.
Yeah, he valued that over potentially getting a first-round pick, which obviously, a future first-round pick obviously has value. It's a future first-round pick.
Yeah,
so
or
that's
Keon
the problem.
Too, like.
It's just a mismanaged. Yeah, Keon. It's just a mismanagement of assets. When you have a strict owner, you have to manage your assets as good as possible, because you basically need to stockpile assets so that you can either make an all-in move that is so attractive your owner can't say no, like, oh, we have the assets to go get Kevin Durant, this team can contend, You'll make more money, because of it to offset his contract, right? Because you have a bunch of assets stockpiled, hypothetically, right? It's either that or having more assets, future first, etc., allows you more flexibility in terms of, okay, well, we can overpay a little bit here for, a Jared Vanderbilt who's only making $4 million next year, who could potentially help the team, and he's on a cheap contract going into next year, so the owner is okay with it. But that's the problem, is he made things worse with that first Clippers trade. The CJ McCollum trade, right? It's like if Jeremy Grant was willing to go for that little, who knows? Maybe we would have been able to keep that pick and trade, something else. If he got a future first back for Norm. And then he negotiated the protections better on the CJ trade. We could have had a lottery pick and traded the first we got for Norm for Jeremy Grant if he negotiated well, right? So that's the thing, is it all comes down to asset management and making sure you have enough in the cupboard. The problem is going into this offseason, if we miss the playoffs, we don't have any future firsts. We have the Knicks first, and we have our first that we can play around with, but we don't have our future first. Okay, so we got those two picks. What contracts do we got? Not many trade chips. So that's the problem. Just mismanagement of assets, not putting themselves in a position contractually to do a whole lot this offseason, overvaluing Eric Bledsoe's contract. Like, there's a lot of things he's done that you can't blame Jody for. There's a lot of things he's done that is his fault. But it obviously makes it harder with Jody Allen at the helm, and that's why I just want her to sell the team and then bring in a new owner, because that new owner could bring in a new GM, or maybe if you take the reins off Cronin, I don't know, maybe he has a stroke of genius, just like Rob Pelinka did at this deadline.
See, I don't think he's creative enough to make it work in his current situation. So yeah, maybe if he can go all in and do that, he does. But I'm not even convinced that he wouldn't just give up everything we have in the future for one player, and then that not being enough for contention. And then not only are we still not really better than we are now, but we're also then have no future as well, and that really worries me.
Yep, absolutely. So that's where this franchise is at going into this All-Star break. I mean, the final 24 games, you're just going to see Dame, Grant. We'll see when Ant's back. Nurk should hopefully be back after the All-Star break. It's still a team that hypothetically could go on a run. Because that's the problem. Absolutely. Without Nurkic and without Grant, our role players' limitations are even more prevalent. Mm-hmm. Because you're missing what your high-end players do. You're missing that high-level shot creation. You're missing that rim protector. You're missing that great screen setter. You're missing that, big man that if a team goes small, you can throw it down into the paint and he can punish smaller teams. Nurkic can shoot threes, right? But Grant, obviously, shot creation, giving him the ball, he can make something happen. We're missing that. We were missing that before, and it didn't get any better. So it's still a major weakness with this team. And then, with Ant not playing the best the past couple of games, obviously it's easy if you can just pass the ball around and make every three, and Trendon can hit 2 threes, and Matisse can go 4 for 6 from 3, and Sharp can make everything, and Nas can make 3 for 5. Like, makes it really easy, but we're missing shot creation. So when we get those guys back, it's a little bit easier to fit Thibault in, and then it takes the pressure off of Cam Reddish to do a bunch offensively, and maybe that'll help him find a little bit of consistency, because he's not, he's given a chance, but he's not over relied on. We'll see.
Yep. Man. So Definitive One says, I think he did decent adding the Knicks pick in 5 seconds. I know we used 2 seconds for Matisse, but we could hit on those picks we have. We got to have hope, dude. Okay, so, the Knicks pick, yes. I just said, I hope we hit on that. That would be my plan right now. But, that's what I would say. I would just say, hey, look, we recognize we are having a tough time getting that all-in move or making a trade for someone. If that trade happens to present itself, we might think about, changing into that mindset and going for it. But with how ridiculous some of these offers we got for those type of players were, we've decided that our best solution is to we have Mike Schmitz on our staff, who's a draft guru guy. We think that his expertise, along with adding other pieces around this roster, gives Dame the best chance to win. And it might sound crazy, but if we hit on a couple of these picks, we've seen draft picks. Even Sharp, who wasn't supposed to like contribute anytime soon, is contributing right away. So like even players that weren't like expected to be good for like 2 or 3 years have shown. There's multiple examples of players all around the league that have helped teams rather quickly in their first couple years. And we believe if we make the right picks with those picks, that we can very quickly build such a talented roster around Dame that even though it's young, if we add the right vets around it and make some smart moves, that gives Dame's window the best chance. And it might even extend it a little bit because the team might be really, really good around them. And if we hit a home run on a pick, let's say it's like a Kawhi Leonard or Giannis type, then you're like, you extend the window out for maybe like 5 years, right? Like I think the problem is I just don't think they're ready to commit to that fully. But if you want to add the seconds in there, most of those seconds aren't even for anytime soon, or might not even convey because they're all protected and stuff. So it's not a case of, oh, we're hoping we're hitting on a bunch of second round picks, because I think that's kind of foolish to think that way.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that is crossing your fingers and hoping that something very unlikely happens, right. Like, because even the smartest draft guys, man, I don't know if it was the same front office, but like Milwaukee, they drafted Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? You just brought him up with the 15th overall pick. But then a few years later, they draft DJ Wilson with the 17th, 18th pick, and that was a guy I really liked, and what did he turn into? Nobody remembers the TJ Leafs of the world, right?
Both those teams could have had OG or
Jared
Allen or...
The draft's a crapshoot, Like, if teams were that good at finding the next, Giannis or Kawhi, then you'd never find a Giannis or Kawhi at 15 or in the mid to late first. So that's my whole thing with, that whole line of thinking. Maybe it is the best strategy, but that's the problem, is like we are so stuck that might be the best strategy, and basically that strategy is just like praying that you can find somebody that alters a franchise with a mid to late first round pick in some second round picks. And that's just not likely, even if you have the smartest dude draft-wise.
Yeah. Zach says the Grizzlies are good at drafting. Yeah, pretty good. They had the second and Jaren, fourth pick?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little easier when you're picking that high, but like outside of that, they've also done well picking other areas.
Who else even, though? Like, obviously Desmond Bane is the one guy that stands out, which, by the way, we could have had that pick. Instead, we wanted to dump Mario Hezonja so bad that we let Memphis have it, because Boston gave that pick up to get off Enes Kanter when we traded for him to bring him back the second time. We could have had that pick. Instead, we let Memphis have it, and now they have Desmond freaking Bane because of it. So, way to go, O'Shea. That is Eric, I might have to do a video just on that move in August. Like, I'm trying to come up with August video ideas because I always struggle. That deserves a whole video in August. The most underrated Neil O'Shea screw-up of all time was letting Memphis have that pick.
Well, Boston and Memphis had already agreed to the pick, and we just came in later and took Kanter from Memphis. But yeah, we mentioned that. I mean, I talked about that for weeks leading up to that trade, that Boston had just done that the year before. They dropped a first round pick to get rid of, was it Aaron Baines or something?
Yeah.
And we talked about that, like, you have to do moves like that. And that's what I'm talking about with Cronin, right? Like, that's a super smart move by the Memphis GM to call Boston, or I don't know who called who, but they were willing to eat Cantor's contract. They had the position to do it, and they got a first-round pick for it. And
we were in that same position. Why didn't we figure that out? You know what I mean?
No, exactly, yeah. But that's what Cronin needs to do. He needs to make moves like that. So you need to find, like, he has these trade exceptions, you know, and now those are the kind of moves I would look to make, like a team looking to free up cap space for free agency and is willing to give you, say, like Phoenix that same year, I think gave up, or it might have been the year before. Yeah, it was the year before. They gave up the 32nd pick and TJ Warren just to take TJ Warren's contract. And I forget who the 32nd pick ended up being, but like it's just like moves like that, you know, like just acquire assets like that way instead of giving up a rotation player to get one of those assets, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, you know, we talk about how great Memphis is at drafting. Last year, they had the 19th and 23rd picks. They took Jake LaRavia and David Roddy. Those are two guys that I like, but how soon are they going to be franchise-altering pieces, if ever? You know what I mean? So
I mean, there's a lot of players in the 20s, though, that are getting minutes. Like, you look at I'm not a big Christian Brown fan, but he's like actually playing rotational minutes for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, he's been in or out of the yeah, but like, how close are they to being like a sixth man or like a high end role player on a championship team? You know, I mean, they're going to develop, but that's the thing is like, how many of them are going to be that? That's the thing is it's just a crapshoot.
This particular draft is, in my opinion, a little deeper. So maybe you can find that guy with the Knicks pick.
Yeah, but you think about it, everybody else is going to find, a guy that in a deeper draft, everybody benefits. So does anybody benefit?
I mean, you have two chances to get a guy. I'd like our chances.
I mean, you got two chances. The thing is, though, we're in such a position that we need to hit on both of them.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the problem.
That's great, but if you hit a run on one of them, I don't think the other one is going to be that devastating if they don't pan out.
Yeah, but define hit. Like, what does a hit mean? Like,
become a starting, like, let's just say we take Jarris Walker and he becomes a legit, like, 18-10 guy in the NBA or something. Like, I don't think it's like that.
Yeah,
that crazy.
I mean, I think it's just... What's more likely, finding an 18 and 10 guy with the 10th overall pick, or finding a guy who never becomes starting quality?
I mean, it's probably 50-50, depending on where you're picking.
Because, I mean, you look at this...
I'll take 50-50, or even if it's like 33-67, I'll take that chance over trading like 4 firsts for that guy in the open market, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, even if it does hit, are we still good enough? You know, that's the thing is, I don't even know how fruitful it is. Like, we got to get it.
Mikal Bridges was the 10th pick. Like, I mean, he would help us right now. He's not like absolutely. A star or anything. You know what I mean? Like, there's examples of that every draft. But like Kevin Knox is the pick before. Yeah, is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah. Well, no, I was gonna say, who was the 10th pick this last year? We saw him hit his first NBA 3 tonight.
Yeah.
And that was Johnny Davis, and me and you both liked him, and has not looked good. I mean, I'm just looking at the draft. It's like 10th pick Johnny Davis looks like a miss right now. 11th pick Ousmane Dieng, done absolutely nothing. He's a project. 12th pick Jalen Williams, been really good for OKC this year. 13th pick Jalen Duren has been
amazing for us right now.
Jalen Duren would be awesome right now. So basically, we need to draft guys named Jalen. Because wasn't there another? Oh, there was Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams, but that's not spelled like Jalen. But that's the thing is I don't know, man. Like, every plan that we've ever had, and every plan that I feel like we ever will have to put a contender around Dame, will just be like crossing our fingers and hoping something that's not all that likely pans out. Like, oh, maybe we can turn around Mario Hezonja's career, maybe we could turn around Cam Reddish's career. Maybe we could. It's just every plan just hinges upon something that isn't likely enough. Whereas Phoenix, it's like, okay, let's trade for Chris Paul, and then, okay, let's go get Kevin Durant. Let's go get him. Even if we overpay, let's go get him, because we're going to be the best team in the league, potentially, if we get him. So let's go do it. Obviously, there's an area in between there, but
Yeah. I still think it's more likely to hit on the draft than anything else, especially in Portland.
Honestly, I don't even disagree with that. That's kind of the problem that I have. Shout out Nathan Candy, $2 donut says Happy Valentine's Day. Cheers. Happy Valentine's Day to you, Nathan Candy.
And everyone else, happy Valentine's Day.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then shout out Elias. What's up, Elias? We got to meet Elias last night at the watch party. He was on the stream last night. He has a $20 dono with the Rage Quit Game Boy pounding the floor emoji. What do they call those? Sticker? Yeah, the sticker. The moving sticker emoji thing. It's a raging Game Boy. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. Tough situation to be in. I haven't been reading chat during this conversation. Chat, do you guys, agree with me? Do you guys feel what I'm saying? Does it make sense? I want to know what you guys think on that and on this entire conversation.
I just think you could have that attitude about anything. It's kind of, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to have a defeatist attitude with what's happened, but yeah.
I mean, it just comes down to it just comes down to likelihood. The thing is when have we ever had a plan to get to contention by adding a super high quality or multiple high quality veterans that we know are going to help the team? I guess you could say Robert Covington was that, but
Cody Zeller and Tony Snell. And
you know what I mean? What guys
Ben
that have been in the
McLemore.
league do we add that are established that we know are going to improve the team? Norman Powell, that trade wasn't even he was better than Gary Trent Jr., but he had question marks. Everything has major question marks. Norman Powell, because we're going to start him at the 3 at 6'3".
I mean,
Defensively, Rocco was the most surefire thing, but that's the sad thing. We gave up 2 first-round picks for Rocco. That was our most surefire, this will help Dame plan.
Yeah.
Since Aldridge left, that's the problem. That's basically the point.
I think they need to. I mean, basically, this is my point. You have to find the next McHale and Claxton. You're not going to trade for those guys. So you have to identify the next ones. And if they happen to do that, I think it could work out. But, I mean, that's really hard to do. So you have to get lucky. Yeah. But, I mean, that's still – either way, it's proving to be near impossible to build a championship contender around Dame here in Portland. So, I mean, I think that's your best shot is to absolutely hope for luck that way.
Yeah, I mean, I just think with Olshey, he thought he was so smart that it backfired on him. When you go out there and sign Mario Hezonja after he's looked really bad for 4 years, but had a couple good games playing point guard at the end of the season for a tanking New York Knicks team. When you go and make that signing, you're basically saying you're basically showing the league that you think you are a genius because you think that you can take this guy who isn't able to pan out in different situations and you think you can tap into something that you saw in 2 games at the end of the year and make him super useful, and basically our organization is going to be the guy that fulfills his potential while other teams couldn't, right? And Olshey was always the guy who would get these players that were picked in the top 10, and I swear, Eric, I feel like Olshey just looked at these guys oh, well, our situation's great. We're going to be able to figure out how to tap into the potential that made them a top pick while other organizations couldn't. I feel like he had a cocky attitude in terms of picking up those guys.
In his defense, he did sign those guys to minimums, and they should have had to play that year anyway. But I get your point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this year. I hate to say this, but we're wasting an opportunity with our two-way guys to contribute at all because neither of them are ready to contribute to an NBA team. So there's another reason why it seems like we're not really doing all we can, because other teams take advantage of those two ways and sign actual good players to two-way contracts and have useful players. Look at Trendon a couple years ago, or last year, I guess that was. Like other teams have that going, so we don't even use those on players that could help if we needed to right now.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so Aeromancer says who? Well, there's two bigs. One, Orlando Robinson, who has been cut and picked back up and cut and picked back up by the Miami Heat. I think they're going to convert him to an actual contract. But we need size, and that was a promising guy in the draft. Or whatever.
Next Nas Reed, by the way.
And then Charles Bassey just got the Spurs just signed him to a 4-year contract, I think, today. I don't know if they would really help us, but it would be two centers who could actually play in an NBA game versus one guy who's years away and one guy who weighs 130 pounds.
Yep. Orlando Robinson and Nas Reed have some differences, but Orlando Robinson was a guy I loved in this draft, and it's funny because the Heat do a really good job at finding those guys and turning them into solid role players. Mm-hmm. And it's they get Orlando Robinson, I think he's going to be a legitimate backup big in the next couple of years. Because he can shoot, he can handle, he can rebound. He's not the best defender, but I could see him being okay. He would be real nice to have right now. I wish we had him. Olivier Sarr right now would be nice to have. Remember him? He's in OKC again.
Yep, they picked him up 1 or 2 ways.
Yep. Anyway.
Well, let me see who said it. It was Definitive One. It says Cronin didn't even want our other second runner. Yeah, we had the 46th pick too, and we gave that away for one future second, which once again, that doesn't really help the team this year.
Yep.
And that pick ended up being Ishmael Kamagate, who isn't playing this year now, but you maybe have that guy overseas. Yeah.
I agree with you, which that's probably our best bet at this point. It's just sad that it's come to that. Because that's the thing, is if you manage assets right, and you're able to find a Nas Reed for nothing and develop him into a guy that can either help your team win, or you could probably trade for a first-round pick, you're generating asset value. And we just haven't had a GM that generates asset value. And we had a GM that gave up asset value at last year's deadline. So that's the problem, is if you can't generate value out of the assets that you have, you get stuck in a position where you're just praying that this minimum signing can pan out, or this guy who hasn't played well the last 4 years, you can tap into the potential he has, or you're just basically preying on these, home run swings that aren't too likely. It's like a baseball hitter. If you're really good at hitting contact, Eric, right, you're going to play for contact. You're going to try and get on base, and you'll hit some home runs, but, you'll hit singles, doubles, etc. If you're not a contact hitter, there's those hitters that just uppercut swing at everything, or always try and hit the home run ball and don't hit for a high average, and they're just praying to hit home runs, basically. That's basically the equivalent of the GMs that we've had.
Yeah.
But, the surefire home runs, we're not there. It's always the unlikely ones. It's always the wild uppercut swings is what we take. And we usually whiff.
Yeah. I don't mind those sometimes. In the draft, I think Sharp was one of those, and I'm still fine with that.
That was a smart home run swing. Yeah. Not every, I don't like the wild ones for guys that haven't been good for 4 years.
Would you? Never mind. I know the answer to this.
You just ask it if you want.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think of what. Obviously, it would be the mid-level exception, would be the most we could offer Naz Reid this summer. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent, but I mean, maybe that's one of the plays we make this summer, is to use that mid-level exception on him.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if other teams are going to offer more or whatever. Minnesota has his bird rights, but they don't. He's not a restricted free agent, so you could maybe steal him. I
feel like it might be better to look for a 4 that can defend the perimeter, because hypothetically you could play them with a Jeremy Grant and they can guard, so you could go big with Grant instead forward, but then also they can back him up as well. And then if it's a guy that could go small, like a Jared Vanderbilt type of guy defensively, obviously would be great. I don't know who in free agency is gettable for an MLE like that, but that's really the most ideal add right now, that archetype of player, because it gives you versatility. Whereas if you're going up against a team like this, you can match their big lineup at times by putting Jeremy Grant against Kyle Kuzma at the 3, and then if you had a big power forward, they could maybe guard Gafford, and then you could put Nurkic on Porzingis, right, or whatever. You could match up easier and you'd have more versatility. That's the problem without having the size, is we're screwed into a position where we have to play guys at a disadvantage against size.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would look for. I don't know if there's any names that fit that.
I mean, someone mentioned Zach Collins being fitting into fits into the Gary Trent trade exception, so maybe you get him. I'm assuming the Spurs pick up his option next year or whatever.
Oh, I don't see how they don't. I mean, he's averaging 10 and 6 and 20 minutes per game, shooting 54%.
Like 29 or the other.
Shooting 54% from the field, almost 36% from 3. He's also averaging 2.5 assists. Per 36, he's 17, 10, and 4.5. And we know he plays good defense, and he can shoot threes. And he's finishing well this year. Or finishing decently this year.
But, if we give up the Knicks pick for him, I think maybe the Spurs do that. But, I don't know.
I would be very tempted to do that.
Yeah. But that's... You're still kind of limiting your ceiling, even if Zach's really good, versus swinging for someone like crazy.
I mean, he's barely 25.
Yeah.
On a per-minute basis, his stats are actually phenomenal. And he can play 4 or 5. He could be the backup 5, but then you could play him some with Nurkic. You could keep Eubanks on the roster as the third string big. If Nurkic gets hurt, you're fine. I like him more than Naz Reid because I like Zach better at power forward than I like Naz Reid at power forward, and Zach's a better defender.
Mm-hmm.
So, we should have just re-signed that dude, man. There's nothing to lose. Instead, we lost a big who would be perfect for us right now.
Yep.
That's the thing. I said just resign him. 2-year team option or whatever. $7, $8 million a year.
Offer.
This is what I said at the time. Yeah, or just the qualifying offer. But I was saying just resign him 2 years, $8 million a year, 2nd-year team option. And I said that and people were like, you're crazy. He hasn't played in a year and a half. He can't get healthy. Well, blah, 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 blah. But the point was, if he continues to be injured, since he has a team option the 2nd year, he's basically an expiring contract who could be a trade chip at the deadline. That's what I was saying, that option. Or that offseason. That's what I was saying. He could be an expiring trade chip if he is hurt. He can be $8 million of outgoing salary. But if he plays and is really good, you could pick up his team option and you could have him as part of your rotation, potentially on a bargain. So literally, even if he's hurt, there's still upside because he's a trade chip that's expiring. That's money that you're not going to spend anyway because he's a free agent with bird rights.
This is what's going to happen this summer, though, Tori. we didn't re-sign him because that would have put us deeper enough into the tax to where we wouldn't have been able to get out. Although we would have ended up getting two with the two bad trades at the deadline. But that's what's going to happen with Thibault and Reddish, most likely, is that we're going to be put in a situation where we have to let one of those or both of them walk because we don't want to go too far into the tax. And yeah, so unfortunately, that's going to be a situation where it's just I'm sure Jody did not want to pay him. Yeah.
I mean, as far as the tax thing, then fine. Cash in on Gary Trent Jr.'s bubble value and get back a smaller salary than Norm Powell's, because it's not like we turned Gary Trent Jr. into anything. We turned Gary Trent Jr. into Norm Powell, into Justice Winslow, dead money, Keon Johnson, and a second-round pick. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'd rather have Zach than any of that. So... yeah, I would take a hard look at Zach Collins for sure. I mean, if this offseason could be something as simple as, finding a way to bring back Zach Collins via trade. Maybe you trade those 5 second-round picks for him. I mean, think about it. You pitch it like this. If 5 second-round picks can land James Wiseman, then 5 second-round picks should be able to land Zach Collins, right? You trade those second-round picks for him.
The Spurs have a million second-round picks, though, now.
Well,
for all their trades,
you say just imagine all the draft rights for international players you can have. You could probably have 20 players draft rights. Yeah, I mean, if you could do it without giving up a first, if it's Keon in seconds or something, Keon has no value. But this is just me dreaming unrealistic stuff right now, since everything's going to be unrealistic anyway. I would like that, and then. You go and try and find a versatile backup forward two-way on the free agent market for the MLE. And if you have to let Thibault and Cam Reddish do that or walk to do that, then you probably let them walk. So then you'd have Zach Collins in a versatile defensive 4 off the bench. And then you'd have to figure out your starting 3. But maybe that's Sharp.
Or you get Jarris Walker and...
Also, if we have our pick, it could be...
Collins.
Yeah, we'd still have our pick to add to that, too.
You start Grant, Collins, and Nurk, and then have Jarris Walker and Sharp off your bench, man.
Yep. With your free agent signing, I mean, it needs to be something like that. That's my dream off season right now.
Realistic dream offseason.
Yeah. I mean, any scenario I come up with is not realistic anyway because it's still too optimistic. So at this point, I'm going to just stop saying realistic because realistically, I mean, we were trying to guess as to what the trade deadline would be. I mean, Eric, think about to when we were trying to guess. Wouldn't it have been a good guess? Because we were trying to think of a negative trade deadline or something that would just be like hilariously buzzkill or hilariously anticlimactic. If I said the names Matisse Thybulle, Cam Reddish, and Kevin Knox at the time, wouldn't you have said, yep, that's probably what it's going to be if it's not good?
Yeah. Well, we could have known that Gary Payton requested a trade, and we're going to trade him to the exact team he wanted to go to. So
did he actually go to Cronin and request a trade?
I don't know if he actually officially did, but he definitely made it known
he definitely wanted out.
He did not want to be here. Yep.
So anyway, I mean, that's just kind of good to do a state of the team and organization and roster going into the break.
Well, I mean, we did. I mean, we didn't want Reddish, so we didn't include him a lot. But I mean, we both knew that was a likely person that would come out of that trade. But most of our deals included him just going to another team, so we didn't take him. But
well, we were expecting Vanderbilt, and Cronin definitely wanted Vanderbilt and lost out on him, and Reddish was his backup plan.
Yeah, and so but we could have had other players in that New York trade than Arcidiacono and Shvi, but we did not want salary next year, so that meant logically we could have had like Isaiah Hartenstein, and we chose to not take him because we didn't want that contract on the books, and that's frustrating to me.
Yep, absolutely. Because at the very least, you could trade him this offseason as a chip.
And if we could have possibly gotten Obi Toppin instead of Cam Reddish in that deal, and we turned that down because he's under contract next year, man.
Yeah.
That's...
I mean, not to be super pessimistic, but basically at this point, I feel like it's completely hopeless until Jody sells the team.
Yep.
And the only hope lies in Sharp plus our picks. But, like, at that point, we're just a rebuilding team. It's not even retooling anymore. At that point, you might as well call us rebuilding.
I mean, it's never really rebuilding with Dame, but...
It's not blowing it up. But, I mean, it's basically a rebuild in terms of you're relying on rookies and future picks to build your team. To build your team up.
But they're doing just enough to make it not do that. Like
I know.
Like
but
Aaron
like
Metzer says with Dame and Grant and Nurkic, like, so...
Yeah, I mean, obviously the core's still intact, so it's not like a blow it up and rebuild. Yeah. It's just literally. What contending and playoff teams rely on rookies and draft picks to build up their team? Normally, it's always via trade or free agency. We're not in that position.
But I mean, like, we're not the Lakers either, who can get free agents and stuff either. So
I know, but I mean, an MLE signing, a good one, not a GP2, a good MLE signing can have a big impact on a team. And, trade, obviously. But that's teams trying to compete. That's what they're looking at, Us, our only hope lies in a rookie and future draft picks panning out after we draft somebody with them.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's most teams. I mean, most teams aren't just going to make one move or sign someone and become contenders.
I mean... That wasn't even the Pelicans last year. That wasn't the Timberwolves.
We're in the same position as the Pelicans.
We're in the same position, but they're... I mean, well, that's because they're hurt. But basically, my point is, all these other teams, like right now, they're looking to get better through trades and free agency, and we don't even have that luxury.
But they also had an asset pile, and they don't have Dame. Oh,
they had an asset... Yeah, but... What do you mean? You don't get my point?
No, I'm just saying I don't think it's a fair comparison to say the other team, like Pelicans got the number one pick, so like of course that helps their rebuilding because most of the time the number one pick you're going to hit on it. They made a good trade for CJ.
Yeah, but basically what I'm saying is every team in our position every team around us in the West, in terms of Golden State, Minnesota, New Orleans, Dallas, Clippers, Suns, right? All those teams that are like above us 4 through 9, they're all in the past, year, they've all focused on getting better via trade and or free agency. Whereas, is that wrong?
But that doesn't mean they have a better shot than if we draft someone, and it's
I'm not saying
like
that.
Shaedon Sharp.
I know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's kind of wild to look at the difference in the. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, we gave him CJ, but I mean, they still have like Dyson Daniels, Zion.
They still have young players.
Lots of players they drafted. They still have a huge asset. That was basically because they had Anthony Davis. So basically, they're just a few years ahead of where if we would have traded Dame when they traded Anthony Davis.
Okay.
So we're like them if they never traded Anthony Davis, where they wouldn't have had all those assets to make all those moves, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I'm just saying, all those teams have had enough assets or the ability to focus on making their team better through trades or through free agency. We don't have that ability or haven't had that ability at this deadline. I mean, the past offseason, we got Grant, right? But this deadline, and then I think this upcoming offseason, we don't have the ability to rely on on getting better in the same ways that the Pelicans have gotten better with CJ. And then Josh Richardson was a really solid add at this year's deadline. The Timberwolves, the Mavericks added Kyrie.
Okay, but almost all those examples have a guard that they traded for, which we wouldn't do. And
that's not the point.
It's a center. It is the point, because the wings, the positions we need are the guys like Siakam that Toronto's not doing unless we give up Ant, Sharp, Nurk, and like 4 unprotected firsts. So like there's no way to get those guys unless we're giving up those kind of packaging, and then we're basically just Dame and that person we trade for. So like that's the problem, is like
absolutely.
We need a position where, I mean, even like Paul George costs like 7 firsts or whatever to get. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, like that's part of it. I'm just saying we're in a position where we have to bank on picks, picks in young players, which is just different.
To find the wings and forwards, because those are the guys that are really hard to trade for. If we had, like, if Dame was a small forward or a power forward, then we could have traded for Kyrie or CJ or whomever, or maybe Anthony developing is the answer there. But that's the problem. Like, we need to find that wing, and I still feel like you take swings in the draft and hope you eventually find the next good one. I don't think that's like a poor strategy. Or
I'm not saying anything's a poor strategy. Yeah. I'm not saying it's a poor strategy. I'm just saying, like, that's basically where we're at. Is we have to rely on the draft and a rookie panning out. It's just like behind where those other teams are at, where they're able to get better via trade or free agency right now. They're able to fill their... Who?
Like Minnesota?
Like they didn't get bad, like, but they had a misstep, but they were still like,
should we have given up a bunch of picks for Gobert?
No, I'm not saying necessarily like every team is making the right moves. I'm just saying their whole mindset. And a lot of these teams, it is the right moves or it is the right pieces to add. Like, Josh Richardson's a no-brainer trade. They definitely got better with that, and they added CJ. Like, New Orleans has been able to fill some needs via trade in the past year. Dallas filled their needs, second star, getting Kyrie. I'm not sitting here saying we should be getting Kyrie or even that that's going to pan out because they lost Brunson, which was a mistake. But basically, like, all these teams have been in a position and will probably continue to be in a position where they can get better through trade and through potentially free agency, especially if they don't have a cheap owner like ours. But given our owner and given our situation and what we need, because as you said, it's hard to trade for those wings, we can't rely on that. We weren't able to rely on that at this past deadline. Cronin's plans didn't even, he had some plans for players he wanted to get. They didn't pan out. And we're not going to be able to plan on that this offseason, I don't think. We're going to have to hope that the picks hit. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what I'm saying, is it's just different.
I mean, we did trade for Rocco and Larry Nance. They're better than Josh Richardson.
We were in that, we thought we were in that position. We just didn't execute it well in the past. And now it's put us to this point where we have to rely on picks and a young player. And that could end up going much better for us than the Gobert trade went for Minnesota. But that's just the difference between us and a lot of teams above us.
Yeah. But that's why it doesn't also make sense to, like, our Gary Payton signing. Like, we're signing a 6'2" guard. I don't care what the analytics say. Like, we're purposely signing players that can't ever be the answer to the problem we need, right?
Exactly my point. Like, we can't, find it on the free agent market. That's easily. Why, like, and even if we could, would that player want to come here? And then even the guy that we signed doesn't want to play here.
Mm-hmm. That's why, like you mentioned earlier, the Jared Vanderbilt thing, like, is not I'm not super high on Vanderbilt, but he's 4.7 million next year, so we could have gotten him and found a way to still be cheap, and it doesn't make our owner mad, right? And that's why we targeted him, but we still weren't even willing to give up what it took to get him. We're still our final offer was still like 3 seconds or something, and so like we weren't willing to pay more than that to get that perfect fit contract wise, and someone who's actually 6'9" with length. So if we weren't even willing to do that, I find it hard to believe we're then going to somehow make a trade or a free agent signing that'll pan out better than just hoping a couple draft picks do.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. That's part of the point. Because I'm just thinking about it. We started Blazers Uprise before the Whiteside and Bazemore trade. In the history of this channel, have we gotten anyone via trade or free agency that's made this team noticeably better, like taking this team to another level?
I mean, I don't know. With those trades, it was like crap. But I mean,
other than Grant, I get, but we're still mediocre.
I mean,
Grant's the only one.
Nice minutes for us, but unfortunately, the season gets shut down and then he doesn't play in the bubble. So that was tough. But yeah, it's pretty much like Aeromancer mentions, probably back to Nurkic outside of Grant. I
mean, I would say Rodney Hood and his Canner, those combinations of guys, made the team noticeably better. Like, that's the bar, that's the bar, is Rodney Hood plus Ennis Canner at that, deadline. That one was via trade, one was buyout. I mean, other than Grant, every other trade or free agency signing, I feel like has had noticeably less impact than Canner plus Hood at that deadline in the last 4 years. So, but what, like, Ant we drafted before that. Other than Sharp, what other really good young piece do we have to show for it? Like, damn, we've wasted our time.
But yeah, we had those picks, the 2 first-round picks that, we lose the 16th pick, and then I think the next year was the 23rd pick for Rocco.
Yeah.
And then that the Nance trade is preventing us from maybe being stupid and going all in right now. So, yeah.
Yep. And then we basically gave Nance away for free as part of that deal, which I guess it helped us get Grant. But then we basically gave Rocco away for free.
We withheld information to get them to take him, according to the Warriors.
Well, yeah, God.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying just swing for 2 more home runs, and if you happen to hit on one and they're like a legit rotation player, I think that's our only way I see us out of this rut, Tori. So like,
yeah, I mean, no, I at this point that is the best strategy. I mean, yeah, basically it's like we've wasted our time because we've the guys that we viewed that can really help this team haven't. Norm didn't. He didn't want to be here. GP2 didn't. He didn't want to be here. Robert Covington didn't. Now he's getting DNPs. Larry Nance Jr. got injured, and then we give away for nothing. I still think, honestly, he could have maybe been the most beneficial guy for the team now. I feel like Chauncey would have been Chauncey was a good coach for him. He just struggled last year. The offense was very stagnant. The offense has more ball movement now. It's like you see the stuff that Trendon Watford's doing in it, and I still like Larry Nance Jr., but still, basically the point is none of those guys did anything productive for us, and we wasted time by trading 3 first-round picks plus Gary Trent Jr. And what do we have to show for it now?
Also, maybe could have gotten Lauri Markkanen instead. And
he would have never become what he is now playing here, though.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Derek Jones Jr., yeah.
But that's like the kind of trade we do need, is to trade for someone that becomes like an all-star level just because it's the perfect role. So I kind of get the whole Reddish-Thibault thing. It's just like at this point, I mean, I believe you know what you have in those guys.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot of mid. Like, I would love I mean, Grant's the one guy that you acquire and you know that he's going to be good. And guess what? He's been good. He wanted to come here, but, I'm talking free agency and trade. So, kind of the same thing with the Grant situation because he wanted to come here and that helped. It's just like that trade has been the best value deal we've made in maybe a decade. The problem is we need more of those. Or we needed more of those. But that's basically, it's a long-winded way to say, like, man, I'm tired of, acquiring guys, that just are mid.
This is why I wanted Wiseman, though, because his value's at the absolute lowest it could be, right?
Yep.
But in my opinion, you're in a perfect low-risk, high-reward type situation where if he shows any promise this year, then you can use that value in a trade. If he was an absolute dud here and he's a complete worthless player, then you have some sort of salary to attach picks to, and he's an expiring contract. It's not like a Nurkic contract where it'll still have 3 years left after this year and you're trying to attach assets to get rid of it. You could actually get some. That's how you get deals done, is with guys like that who are on expiring rookie contracts and who if he blows up like on the team he goes to, they have his bird rights and ability to match contracts. And that's why I think you take chances on that. You don't take chances on like Cam Reddish, who hasn't really shown much considering how athletic and how much talent he has. So like I don't know, like it's just frustrating to me that we had potentially a piece like that we could have turned into something greater than we got him for, and we just chose a bunch of second round picks instead.
Yeah, and we weren't super high on the deadline, and we've had people, say Cam Reddish is going to prove us wrong, and
I hope he does.
Matisse Thybulle is going to prove us wrong. Yeah, and I hope he does too. The problem is I feel like every time somebody has that conversation with me about a player, they never do. Well, like, am I forgetting someone?
No.
Justice Winslow was going to prove me wrong. Mario Hezonja, Nick Stauskas was going to prove me wrong. Yeah. I would love to be proven wrong. Definitive One asked, Eric, did you just say we'd have to attach an asset to dump Nurk, or did I hear you wrong?
I'm just saying, like, there's not many. We've talked about this at length, Definitive One. We know that there's not many teams that need a center, so that makes Nurk make sense for. So yeah, you're probably trading him to a team that doesn't want him, and therefore you have to attach assets to it.
It's more so the situation of other teams, not necessarily a specific knock against Nurk, is how I'd put it.
I mean, it's the same with Nas. Like, he's more valuable if he pans out for us versus using his salary in a trade. But
like, I don't think, yeah. I mean, if you could go out and get a center that's 85% of what Nurkic does at 20% of the cost, sure. And then it makes it easier to keep a Thybulle or whoever, sure. But, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we're going into this offseason, and it's like, the restricted free agency of Thybulle and Reddish, doesn't it feel a lot like when we were going into the restricted free agency for like Alan Crabb and Maurice Harkless and Myers Leonard?
Mm-hmm. But at least Paul was willing to go in the tax then.
Yeah, and he was willing to go in the tax, and those guys still ended up being overpays. I mean, Harkless started for us, so Harkless was probably the most fine, but I mean, shoot, we're still paying dead money to Andrew Nicholson, which is making this harder because we matched on Alan Crabb in restricted free agency. Because Brooklyn gave him $18 million. So we were lucky enough that they still wanted him on $18 million, that they were willing to trade Andrew Nicholson for him straight up, and I don't know why they still wanted him. But I'm scared of this offseason, dude. This is the first time I've thought about it on this stream. I'm just You're going into this offseason with these guys, man. It's like they play great, they probably get overpaid. They don't play great, then they're not helping the team. Like it's kind of a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, I think Thibault will ultimately be the guy who gets retained on top of, having defensive acumen. What you said earlier, Tori, is about, we sign all these guys that don't want to be here. So I think if he actually wants to be here and is committed to things and is part of the team, it seems like he's well liked already. So I think ultimately he'll be the one guy we keep from those deals, but yeah.
And I do like that Definitive One says Thibault has an elite bankable skill. Mm. I do like that. You guys should know what my concerns are with him, obviously. Pretty well documented.
We're also just, it's just nothing against Thibault. We're just sick of players that we have to basically just forget about being something on the other end.
Yeah. Yep. I want two-way guys, man. I'll say it over and over and over again. If Thibault can shoot consistently 36% from 3 on okay volume, he's a really freaking good role player. Mm-hmm. So, obviously that's the hope. And maybe he can, I know not to bet against, 3 years of the same shooting. Unless a guy doesn't shoot and then starts to develop a shot like Nurkic did, if it's a guy that, will shoot at times and they're consistently at this certain level, I don't bet against that.
Well, and two, with Thibault, he's 25 years old. He played college for 4 years. He played in the NBA now for 4 years. Outside of, bigs that learn how to shoot, there's not a lot of precedent for smaller players, guards or wings that can't shoot threes at all, that all of a sudden after 8 seasons develop some sort of consistent jumper. I'm hoping he's one of them, but look at what's a good example? Was it Halliburton that had a huge jump at freshman to sophomore year in college?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of freshmen struggle, and then they come in the NBA and are decent three-point shooters. But it's very rare you see someone stay 4 years. He's down to 30.5% shooting his senior year, and then all of a sudden they turn into a big three-point shooter at some point after 4 years of not being one in the NBA as well. And I know he shot 35% a couple times. I'd love for him to do that again, but that's not good. It's okay.
What's funny is, so the people saying 2 out of the 4 years he shot at least 35%. Where are you getting that stat from? Because it's not even right. It was actually better. Believe it or not.
He shot 40.
He shot in 3 out of 4 years. He shot at least 36%, and in one of the years he shot 40%.
College NBA 3-point line though.
Oh, are we talking about college? Are we talking about NBA length threes in college, or are we talking about just 3-point percentage in college?
I think just overall 3-point percentage, but it is
short line. It is a short line. But his freshman year 36.6%, his sophomore year 40.5%, his junior year 36.5%, and then his senior year 30.5%. So I've seen multiple people say 2 out of the 4 years he shot at least 35%. And it's just it's not even 3 out of the 4 years he shot at least 36%. So I'm just wondering. Oh, he shot over 35. He shot. Yeah, no. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm kind of confused why people that are trying to have hope in him are actually short-changing him.
It was 3 out of 4, Adam.
36% in 3 of 4 years, and people are saying, "Oh, we shot 35% in 2 of 4 years." Yes, go look at meaning better than. Yes, better than 35%. He shot better than 36% because it was 36.6 and 36.5. We're having a semantics argument. Yay. 2 hours in. But yeah, no, I'll help him hype you. I'll help hype him up even more. But still, I care what he's done in the NBA, not what he did 6 years ago in college.
Nick Thompson asked, do we have any money for buyouts? We're actually under the tax enough to, sign someone on the buyout market. We actually have a biennial exception. So if there was something really good that we could sign on a 2-year contract, we could do that too and stay under the tax. But one, that means we have to cut someone. So Jody would have to eat that salary and then be willing to add whatever salary of that new player is. And then, I don't know, can anyone name a player that would be worthy of doing that? I mean, I guess like a Serge Ibaka or something, but I don't even know if he'd choose here over anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't
know. So let's end off this stream with a Chauncey quote, Eric, if you want.
All right, cool.
Chauncey Billups on where the team is. This is via Sean Hyken, by the way. Chauncey Billups on where the team is entering the All-Star break. 28-30. Chauncey said, I don't feel bad at all. I've lost a lot of sleep over games I felt like we should have won, and then I felt like we stole a couple. I just want to get healthy and see if we can make a push. He doesn't feel bad at all being 28-30.
Yeah.
It's okay that we're mediocre. That's what I'm tired of from this franchise.
Yeah.
From their transactions to the coaching. Like, that's one of my biggest problems with Stotts. Was he was just fine with mediocrity.
He even had a 10-4 advantage. Like, he had a head start on this record, so it makes it even worse.
Yeah, so what are we since then? 18-26?
Yeah.
We're 18-26 in our last 44 games. And we don't feel bad? Bruh. I'm tired of accepting mediocrity. But then people get on me, oh, Tori, you're so negative. I'm negative because I'm tired of mediocrity, man. I'm tired of it. It's been too long, too many years.
Yeah.
Since 2019, we just accepted being 500. So, that's the thing. It's
Jakob,
like if
they're not tanking, Jakob. Like, you can just forget about it. They're not going to decide to tank during the break.
Yeah, no, this team's going to push. Thank you, Jakob. Speaking of Jakob, 20 Norwegian dollar crony. Norwegian crony donation. I mixed that up. Norwegian crony donation 20 from Jakob says, well, that was a shat game on so many levels. Thank you, Jakob. Yeah, absolutely. So my angst is at Jody, Cronin, and Chauncey. It's not all three of them. It's not all three of them. Jakob, you know I try my best. Mike's is out all three of them, Eric.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if Ant's out for a while and Sharp helps lead us to the playoffs as the starting 2 guard, I guess that's probably a positive thing too, right?
Yeah, but also you know how many anti-Ant
yeah.
conversations will happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. If Sharp shows he's ready, then okay, maybe you trade Ant and Nurk. And, if we make the playoffs, we'd have our future first. Maybe you find a small forward that's available. Maybe the Clippers suck and Paul George wants out. Right? You know what I'm saying? Maybe. That's the thing. But if we're having that conversation because Sharp proves he's ready, I'm down to trade Ant and, other pieces. Maybe it's not Nurk, Ant and a couple pieces for Paul George or whatever if it's doable.
How long have we been streaming? Over 2 hours, right?
2 hours, 8 minutes.
So Jakob just says, what is the answer to our questions? And Eric, fix the franchise for us. We just spent the last hour and a half talking about that. So
yeah.
I know you'll go back and watch, Jakob, but yeah, I basically laid out the best path, and then Tori and I discussed it for at least an hour. So
yeah. This has literally been a deep dive on the state of the organization. So, I mean, cool. This was a good conversation to have before the All-Star break. Now at this point, we just enjoy the All-Star break. Enjoy not having this team around for 9 days, and then we see who gets healthy. Right? Aren't you kind of excited to not watch a Blazer game for 9 days?
No, because
You're
want
not
to win this freaking game, and so we could not watch them, but they're also 500, so we have something to look forward to. And now we don't have Anthony for a while, most likely. So now I'm even more sad.
Well, I mean, that's so fitting for this team, though. We get screwed over by an injury, and we lose to not get to 500 right before the All-Star break to the Wizards at home. Like, that is par for the course for this team. So I'm just happy that this roller coaster is stopping at the station for 9 days. And I can get off this roller coaster ride for 9 days. Because I need a break. I'm lightheaded. All the ups and downs. Done with this team for now. And then we come back and there's only what?
24 games.
Only 24 games. This is like 2/3 mark, so I can't believe there's only 24 games left. Only 24 games. Okay, daily tankathon, sure. What's up, Brad? Tankathon, and then we're out of here. When are we? So, we never. There was 3 games on Thursday. What do you want to do, Eric? We need to figure that out.
I don't care. I'm down for whatever.
So, chat, I asked you guys a poll if you guys wanted 3:30 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. on Thursday because there wasn't games for picks against the spread. But actually there's 3 games. I just didn't think the NBA would give us an extra 2 days off because normally they screw us in terms of scheduling. So, I'm going to ask you the poll again. With 3 games for picks against the spread on Thursday, we can do it at 3:30 and pick those 3 games for Blazers Uprise Live. Or we can do it at 9:30 and just not pick those games. Alright? So we're doing this poll again with that information known. We'll see how badly you guys want to pick 3 games. Okay? Because if you guys want to pick them, then sure. Then I'll, do the graphics for them and all that. Anyway, that'll decide our next stream time. I got the Tankathon up. Let me connect it here. Yep, there we go. Wait, no, that's not the right one. Tankathon. Cool. Here we go, Eric. So, we will never be able to outdo the excitement of the first time we did it this year. That obviously was top notch. But the Blazers currently have a 1.5% chance at Victor Wembanyama. 7% chance at top 4. If we got the 3rd pick, who would you take right now? Well, if we got the 2nd pick, would you take Scoot?
I'm trading down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so say we got the 3rd pick, who would you take right now?
Brandon Miller.
You take Brandon Miller at 3?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to have to watch some more Brandon Miller.
Amen is very tempting, but I prefer someone who can shoot the ball, and he is a lights-out three-point shooter. Good score, good size for the 3, and I think he would slot right in and help us next year.
Yeah. I need to watch more film on both the guys. It'd be tough to pass up that athleticism with that, defensive ability that, the Thompson twins bring. I know one of them's better. I don't know which one.
Amen's better than us here, but
yeah,
they're both very similar.
Yeah, so be interesting debate. Interesting to see.
I saw someone who had Jarris Walker at 4 today.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, his body and how well he moves with his size and some of the skills it seems he has and the defense. I don't know, man. I feel like that's a top 10. Like, the little bit I've seen, I don't know how it's not a top 10 guy, but that just speaks to the quality of this draft, which is why missing the playoffs isn't the worst thing. So.
Dang, I have some bad news for you, Tori.
What is it?
Remember how I told you Jackson went 2-10?
Yeah.
Last night? So did you.
I did terrible. So I'm happy he went 2-10 with me. Actually, I thought I won 3 games.
We'll go back through.
I swear I won 3 games.
You won the Nuggets and the Magic.
And
that's it. Because you thought you were going to win the Warriors, Wizards, but...
And I won the... Oh, I picked the Nets because I wanted the Knicks to win.
Yeah, you picked...
Oh. Well, sick. Yeah, I don't even want to do picks on I don't even want to do picks on Thursday then. I need a break because I'm slumping now. Anyway, let's simulate this lottery. By the way, Portland would have the 20th pick and the 12th best odds at the number 1 overall pick. Let's simulate this lottery. And then scroll up as we always do. At 14, it's Golden State. At 13, it's Portland.
So 13 moved up?
Yep. So we moved down from 12 to 13. Who is 13? The Jazz? The Jazz. At 12, it's OKC. Yeah, it was the Jazz. At 11, it's Toronto. Yeah. God, how annoying would that be if we, like, didn't even tank, ended up with the 12th best odds, and then it's like, oh, you still did too bad. 13th moves up. Watch them have the number 1 overall pick. 9, Orlando. 8, Indiana. I don't know who moved up. Let's just get to the top 4. At 4, you got Houston, so Utah's top 3. At 3, you got Detroit, so Utah's in the top 2. At 2, you got Utah, and at 1, you got the Pelicans.
Yeah, Wemby and Zion and Scoot and...
Oh, God, that would be a nightmare. If Utah got Scoot. Both those guys are perfect for those teams. Mm-hmm. Well, this just made me feel worse. Thanks, Bread. I wish we never did that. Oh, my God. See, the Lakers need to do a little bit better. Because the Pelicans can't get Wemby, dude. CJ, Brandon Ingram, Zion, and Wemby. Although you do have injuries would be the only thing holding that team back.
Yeah.
Redo right now? You guys want to redo?
They have a very good chance at that happening.
So chat is divided on when to have the stream. Yeah. So it didn't really help. 12's Portland. We didn't move up, but at least Utah didn't. Guess what? The Pelicans got Wemby again!
No way.
You guys wanted it. Do you guys want me to do it again? How many times do you want the Pelicans to get Victor Wembanyama? How many times are we going to do this? Are we going to do this until Portland jumps up into the top 4? Is that what you guys want? Fine. Orlando. Ooh, he'd be fun in Orlando. But the Pelicans still moved up to 4. Oh, there you go. Portland at 3. There's the scenario, Eric.
Nice.
Houston gets Wemby, and we'll probably find a way to waste his career. Anyway. Any final words for the stream?
Thank everyone for watching. Appreciate you all. If you are taking a break from the team for a while, hope you have a good All-Star break, and we hope to see you back, in chat when the All-Star break is over. But we'll have a couple streams in between now and then, so if you want more of us, feel free to tune in as well.
Yep, Blazers Uprise Live will be at 3:30 p.m., Eric, on Thursday.
51. Nice.
God dang it.
Okay.
Chat. All right. Well, we'll pick 3 games. And, yeah. Enjoy the All-Star break. I don't know if I'm gonna do an All-Star Saturday night stream because Sharp dropped out, and then Simons isn't doing the 3-point contest most likely after this injury, so I'll let you guys know if I do. But if not, then it'll be Thursday, Monday on Blazers Uprise Live, our second channel. Then the first game back is the 23rd, correct? Which is the following Thursday. So
chat went 8-4 on last
Good for
night.
them.
Oh, that's cool.
So over the next 9 days, 2, maybe 3 streams. That's the plan. Anyway, thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this postgame show. Promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, if you want to get in on some all-star action. And with that being said, we are out of here. Headed into the break. We need it. We need it. This franchise is limping into this freaking all-star break. The Blazers lose to the Wizards, 126-101. Have a good rest of your nights. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.